And this is LTR News. And I'm Logan Helgeland.
I'm sure Randall with your national news.
And I'm Robby with your stay in local news.
What's been happening in the world the past week? Well, that's a good question. March 5th, it was a sad day for Venezuela. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez died. He passed away at age 58 due to battle of cancer, and it was kept under wraps from the general public. He started Venezuelan economy, and he started a constitution as well as expanded government forces. He built houses for the needy and produced jobs with government. Venezuela will hold president elections April 14th, and Nicolas Maduro, the stand-in president currently, will run for his own term. He has agreed to continue Chavez's way of socialism revolution, and his opponent is Henrique Capriles, the governor of the current state of Miranda State, and he lost to Chavez last October. Even though Maduro in the polls is likely to win, the Miranda State governor wants a chance to end Chavismo, so I guess we'll have to see in April if Chavismo will fall or continue on. As we all know, Pope Benedict XVI has recently resigned, leaving us with the question, what is to happen next? Well, on March 9th in the Vatican City, Vatican workers hoisted a chimney on top of the Sistine Chapel in readiness for the Papal Conclave, where Roman Catholic cardinals will elect a new pope. On March 10th, an American Roman Catholic cardinal hinted at the difficulty of deciding who should be the next pope. They're saying it was a time of the will of God was not entirely clear, and if it was time for a new era where a black pope could possibly be elected. And on March 12th, black smoke rose from the Sistine Chapel, signaling that the cardinals to have not agreed on the new pope on the first day of the Papal Conclave. Now let's go over to Middle East, to Afghan. March 9th, the demand intensified over the use of drones. The U.S. military stated that it has removed data about airstrikes carried out by the unmanned drone aircrafts, and that it removed from the data from the monthly air summary due to unproportional data giving about the events. And more from Afghanistan. At that March 9th, Afghan President Hamid Karzai, a day after two Taliban bombings that killed 17 people, Karzai accused the United States and the Taliban of conspiring together to prove that foreign forces were going to be needed past 2014, when NATO is set up to remove all troops out of Afghanistan. The very next day, Karzai canceled a press conference with the new Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, and with concern of security concerns, which was hours after he already went on to national television and bashed the U.S. government for conspiring with the Taliban. Commander of the coalition forces, U.S. General Joseph Dunford, generously declined all the statements. Now let's move over to Syria. March 8th, the 21 United Nations peacekeepers that were captured by Syrian rebels last week just moved into Jordan. They were kept 3 days in southern Syrian village, and the rebels and UN officials in Damascus told us that they were fully unharmed, and just as the rebels have promised. Now let's go over to Trevor with our national news.
Thanks, Logan. In Washington today, massive sequestrian budget cuts will cut about $1 billion this year from the money the Federal Emergency Management Agency sets aside for disasters, but that shouldn't affect payments to individual Hurricane Sandy victims. FEMA's director told lawmakers this on Thursday. FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate said that barring another disaster, his agency is on track to end fiscal 2013 with $2.5 billion in disaster relief funds. Individual assistance covers housing costs, some home repairs, disaster grants for property loss not covered by insurance, and low-interest disaster loans. The sequestrian cuts will trim $1.9 billion from money set aside in a Superstorm Sandy disaster relief bill passed by Congress for transportation repairs. So far, FEMA's disaster relief fund has paid $3.7 billion to Sandy victims. The agency projects that a total of $10.8 billion will be paid out by the end of the fiscal year on September 30th. In Louisville, Kentucky today, dozens of industrial plants along the Ohio River may not comply with a tougher mercury pollution standard that goes into effect in October, a regional water quality commission has warned. A list of roughly 60 wastewater treatment plants, coal-fired power plants, and other industrial facilities has been sent to state regulators by the 8 state Ohio River Valley Water Sanitation Commissions, which sets water quality standards for the Ohio River. The resulting regulatory crunch created with the tougher standards could force the commissions to delay or alter enforcement. That can mean that more mercury in a river already so tainted that it carries health warnings for eating fish because of dangerous mercury levels. Public school districts across Oklahoma could decide whether to allow armed teachers in classrooms under a bill approved late Tuesday in the Oklahoma House. The Special Reserve Resource Officer Act passed by the House on a 68-23 vote, despite concerns raised by opponents over the safety and liability allowing armed teachers. The bill would give districts the option of paying for teachers to receive a minimum of 120 hours of specialized training in order to carry a firearm into the school. The Council on Law Enforcement, Education, and Training would be directed to develop a specialized training course for volunteer teachers. Some members questioned whether 120 hours is adequate training for a teacher to be able to carry a gun around children. Faced with the backlash against their ban on gays, the Boy Scouts of America are surveying their members on a potential change in policy. A questionnaire distributed to 1.1 million adult scouts uses fictional situations to discern where scouting membership falls on questions of homosexuality, gays camping with children, and gays in church leadership. It allows adult scouts to indicate a range of feelings from strong support to strong opposition on their ban on gays. After the theoretical situations are posed, the survey then asks respondents about their feelings on gays and scouting. The scouts provided the survey by email Tuesday morning to the Associated Press. The questions were developed by North Star Opinion Research, a Virginia research firm that says it serves political, corporate, and nonprofit clients.
Thank you, Trevor. And now, in local news, John J. Ems accused of gunning down his wife outside a Majestic movie theater in Union Gap, corresponding with his fellow co-worker to make his wife's killing look like a random shooting, made his first court appearance Tuesday. John had little to say during his court appeal, but many people had much to say about his black eye. Police think that while he shot his wife, one of the shots had the recoil of the gun come up and hit him in the eye, which left his black eye. Yakima County and the Yakima Greenway founders are scrambling to get a $400,000 state grant to build an extension on the Greenway track near Glede. But a project similar to ours somewhere else in the state had failed to get this grant. So our hopes of getting this extension are not looking good. The Greenway founders say that if they do get the grant, the extension would probably be done within a year. March 12th, the power goes out in Selah. Blame for the power outage was blamed on some low-flying birds that happened to hit a power transformer. Pacific Power says that this is the second most significant power outage caused by birds in the Selah area. Out of the 7,200 people that live in Selah, 6,160 were left without power. Last week, a cold case was finally broken. Michael and Frank, convicted of killing a Seattle woman 15 years ago, were sentenced Friday to just over 20 years in prison, the maximum allowed under the law in this state. The woman was brutally stabbed to death in her apartment in Selah on the night of August 28, 1997. It was the first homicide in Selah in over 10 years. And now in regional news. In Olympia, the state has passed a measure for greater representation of minority groups in local elections, over the objection of the Republicans, saying that the measure is unnecessary and too costly. The bill passed with a near tie of 53 votes to 44. The bill will now move to the Senate, where its fate is uncertain. Last week, the Roosevelt High School softball coach had an unusual game for his team members to play. He sent some of the girls from his softball team to do an unusual scavenger hunt, where he sent them to go and get pictures and phone numbers of girls on their teens and give them back to him. The purpose of these photos and phone numbers is yet to be determined. Governor John Ainsley is making a push to make a fight against climate change, with pollutants and other such things that will affect the climate here in Washington State. He has enlisted the help of many lawmakers in our state, in Yakima, Selah, and other cities around Washington State.
Thanks, Robby. A lot has been happening in our great state of Washington and in our communities. Let's see how the great people of West Valley feel about the hot topic of gun control and their opinion on the issue. Now we have a special commentary on the issue to inform you of both sides and how each side feels about the matter of gun control.
I'm Logan Oakland, and I'm pro-gun control. And the bottom line is, a gun is a lethal weapon, and its only function is to kill. And if the fewer people have it, the better. If firearms were less prevalent in society, criminals have more difficulty in laying their hands on it, thus creating lower possibility of firearms falling in the hands of teenagers and preventing a tragedy like the Columbine High School massacre.
That is a valid point, Logan. However, banning guns or prohibition will not make them disappear. In order to protect themselves, their family, and their property, it is a legitimate right of the citizens to own their own weapons. Society will not become safer by restricting gun ownership, as guns don't kill people. People kill people. Also, in the majority of cases involving guns or firearms, the weapon used is not legally bought or registered. It is either smuggled or stolen from registered owners.
Gun control will ensure stricter background checks on all ownership of firearms, and the manufacturing of firearms will be limited, and thus resulting in a virtually no violent crime era, which is what we're aiming for, right? But there will be always incidences of thefts and car thieves, but there will be no guns involved, thus resulting in no violence and no deaths. So is gun control a bad thing?
While a segment of the law guarantees individuals the right to own guns, another amendment makes owning a handgun difficult, and many people feel that their constitutional rights are being denied. It is also observed that if a law-abiding citizen have guns, they are better equipped to handle situations where they might find themselves face-to-face with criminals, thus bringing the crime rate down. And that's all for LTR News. We'll see you next week.